Something that I think about is the fact that every single one of us has heard the quote, the early bird gets the worm. It's a very generic, popular quote, which, to be fair, it does hold some truth. If you come prepared, if you come early, get ahead of everyone else, you will get the worm. You will succeed. But the thing that nobody talks about is the quote which goes, the second mouse gets the cheese. And I really did like that quote the first time I heard it. It clicked instantly. All made sense. Because the first mouse is the one who gets caught in the mouse trap, you know? The second mouse is not the lazy mouse, not the passive mouse. He is the one who thought ahead. He's the one who used the failure from the first mouse, who used the first mouse's mistake to thrive in his success. He's the one who waited and watched and learned, and then he got the cheese because of that. So that's what I want to talk about today. Because of the fact that we live in a culture which is obsessed with speed. Every single person is rushing to build the next thing, start the next genius idea. But they all want to get famous, they want to get rich, they want to launch the next viral product, which, don't get me wrong, is obviously something to strive towards. And obviously urgency does hold its place in every single scenario. But the problem with getting so obsessed with this speed and being first is that you don't even realize that you're the one walking into the trap. You are the first mouse walking into that mouse trap. Come here, my hair, man. Whatever. It's not that being patient is cowardly. This actually is something very powerful about patience, which, it holds value in calculating, in observing. Those things, they work together to allow you to understand the route that you're walking on, instead of just walking on some random path which you've been told will take you to success. There's a lot of people out there who will mistake patience for some sort of weakness, or, like I said, cowardice. They think that waiting around means that you're hesitating. Whereas I'm here to tell you that waiting is one of the strongest moves you can make. So I'll begin with a story to help you resonate with the topic. So about a year ago, maybe a bit more, year and a half ago, I was in this trance. I was in this mad rush to figure everything out. Business, my YouTube channel, which I hadn't even started then, which shows the insanity of it. All my habits, like meditation, cold showers, waking up early. All of it. I thought I had to be the first person out of everyone I knew to make it work. So I rushed and I copied other people online. I copied the fact that they woke up at 3 a.m. and slept at this time. Or I copied the fact that this guy would meditate for an hour. When in reality, I wasn't thinking about the long game. I dove in with my head straight first, without considering the future. And can you guess what happened? Burnout. I burnt the fuck out, and I was confused, and I became mediocre. That's the problem with that. But then I began paying attention, and I was paying attention not to the people who were on the podium, but instead the ones who used to be up there, the ones who used to be on top of the podium. I watched so many of these people get ahead fast. They became viral. They made a shit ton of money. They exploded overnight. And then I looked at the aftermath of that. I saw that they lost all that virality in one day. All their money flew straight out of their pockets, Their castles were built just out of sand. And what good is a castle made out of sand if it comes crumbling down within a day? So then, it genuinely clicked with me. Like I said, when I first heard that quote, it resonated with everything I just told you about my life. The second mouse potentially has it better than that first mouse. Potentially they even have it better than the early bird, sorry. The second mouse isn't lazy or, they're not mediocre, they're not passive. They're strategic. Like I said, they plan things out. They observe other people's failures and mistakes, and they ask these people, they ask themselves, why did the first mouse fail? Why did you not succeed in this route that you took? What did you miss? Things like, what can I learn from the mistakes that they made before I take action? And it's not about waiting around idling, it's about having the engine on, being in neutral, and then stepping onto that first gear as soon as you are ready, as soon as the light turns green. Because some people will try and rush through that yellow light, and guess what happens? They'll get hit, fucking T-boned by another car, which kind of summarizes the ideology of going first. Some of those will make it past. Some individuals will go fast enough to not get hit. But a lot of people who run the red light get hit by other cars. So if you wait until that light turns green and you're planned and everything is precise, you won't get hit. Hopefully. So the ideology of asking these questions from the people who have failed in the past, the other mice, the first mice, or asking yourself these questions even and genuinely brainstorming these questions, that is wisdom. That is where intelligence comes from. School educates you, school teaches you, university teaches you. You learn, you learn from these things. But true wisdom comes from questioning what you learn, not simply copying down the notes. No, it comes from, understanding where these ideologies that you've been taught come from. Why is algebra like it is? Whatever. I'm yapping, sorry. But all I'm basically trying to say is that being the first doesn't make you the smartest. Look at all these big corporations like MySpace, Vine, Blockbuster. All of these were the first company to do these innovative things. Yeah, they were first movers. And now they're all fucking dead. They're all gone. They're dead companies. They've literally been sold off or they went bankrupt. Then you can take a look at Netflix, Instagram, Apple. They weren't the first to arrive to the scene. They were better than the first who arrived. They watched and they learned and they waited. They lurked in the shadows until it was ready for them to pounce, for them to strike. And when they strike with precision. That is the energy that the second mouse provides. That is the point I'm trying to get at here. So that takes me, it kind of transitions me into something even deeper. Because this isn't simply about business, content creation, school, or any of these things online. This is about your life. This is about the life that you live. You've watched several people nearby you destroy relationships between them, craving attention, chasing this first place attraction. They've handed over their health, binging this fast food and shit. They've watched all this porn, etc. I've talked about this in past videos before. I wouldn't like to get into it now because it is a hard-hitting topic. So, like I'm saying, you've seen these people hand their entire lives to comfort, to addiction, to negative habits. And now they can't even hold fucking eye contact in a conversation between you and me. You can't hold eye contact, there's not many comments on this video yet. You would have gone to the comments, you're scrolling in your recommended, whatever, you checked your phone 10,000 times. You've seen the trap. I've told you about this trap. So why are you still sprinting towards it? Just because you see the cheese at the front of the mousetrap doesn't mean you need to race to that cheese. You don't want to get caught in the trap. You want to be that second mouse. You need to take a step back in your life. Look at the damage that has been caused. Learn from that damage, and then you go around it. You go to the other side of the trap and you grab the cheese from the back. You don't need to get high to see what drugs do to people. You don't need to fuck 50 people just to realize it doesn't make you whole. You don't need to chase every single dollar just to realize that it won't make you happy if you're empty inside. The first mouse is the one who hands you the blueprint. They give you the plan, they give you the roadmap. His blood is still on that trap. And the cheese, it's still there. He chased after it, it's still there. Guess what? You just have to be the one who's smart enough and precise enough to grab it safely. Now, I'd like to dive into I wouldn't say it's a deep topic, but it is a very personal topic to anyone watching this video, and it's ego. Ego is what killed the first mouse. The first mouse wants to be first. First, that's the key word here. All these fucking brain rot kids commenting first, in all these videos. All these people trying to start the new trend. They want the glory. They want to prove something to everyone. But that is all ego. And ego will fucking kill you. Ego will destroy you. You can't be curious and egotistical at the same time. No, it's not possible. You can't learn while pretending to know everything. And you definitely cannot avoid that trap if you are sprinting towards it, trying to prove that you're the fastest. If you're the first one to the trap, congratulations, you're dead now. That's it. Drop the ego. The most powerful move sometimes is literally to stop, pause, be still, look around you. The world is still spinning, but you are now careful. I kind of butchered that, whatever. You want to observe. You want to be attentive to every single little thing around you. And the most important thing is that you want to admit that you don't know it yet. But you're watching, you're listening, and most importantly of all, you're learning. And then once you finish learning, which you've never finished learning, once you think that you've absorbed enough knowledge, then you move, then you pounce. And that is when it hits. And that is when you take every single bit of information that you've absorbed, failures, lessons, patterns, strategies, all of these things, and that is when you move. You act, but you don't want your actions to be based on impulse. That's like the main thing I'm getting at here. You want it to be based on wisdom. You want it to be based on knowledge. You don't want to be copying someone online blindly. You want to be adapting to your own situation. You want to be improvising and evolving, because if you simply blindly copy someone, in the end, you are never going to end up like them. If I hop on a fucking video game right now and I copy the best player's sensitivity or settings, that doesn't make me the best player. Or if I copy a 5-year gym bros routine on my first day in the gym, I'm literally just going to rip my fucking muscles apart, You're not ready for that. Like, if I go out and try and run a fucking marathon just like Kipchoge did it, I'm going to die in the first fucking kilometer, let alone 100 meters. That guy's put in so much effort that you think you can just go and copy everything he's done? No, obviously not. The idea is to avoid copying someone else and adapting to your own situation. If I see that, wow, he's fucking fast, he's running that quick, you don't want to copy his marathon style. You want to copy his training. You want to adapt. You want to evolve his training into something that works for you. You see that you can't do these fucking sled pulls that he might do because you don't have access to that equipment. So you adapt. You find different variants of that training regime and you make it work to your standard. So all I'm trying to say is that this is how the real individuals move. This is how the background succeeders, the ones who actually win in life, not the explode and then straight back to the bottom. Not how they do it. Do you think like Marcus Aurelius wasn't the second mouse? He observed so many empires and so many people crumble under power that he understood that their emotions ruled them. So what did he do? He ruled Rome. He ruled his empire with a stoic discipline. He understood that if emotions are the number one killer, get rid of him, If he's running the empire, run it the most successful way. Because if you want your empire to fall, do the exact same thing that the past empires did. Furthermore, the other fucking empire owner, very successful philosopher, Seneca, he did the same thing, He saw how so many people around him were living in chaos and grime and fucking horrible lifestyles, that they were consumed by their anxiety and consumed by instant pleasure. So he didn't dive into it. No, he didn't copy the guy behind him, or sorry, the guy in front of him, the first guy. He pulled back, made himself the second mouse, and said to himself that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. That is the second mouse's thinking, you know, that is not the first mouse. The first mouse would see the trap and walk into it. The second mouse sees the trap before he's even fucking close to it at all. Now, I myself am a younger man, so I'm going to reach out to the younger men watching this. If you're in your teens, like myself, or early 20s, you know, you think that you have to make it now. The reason I started this channel is because I understand that regardless of my business endeavors in the future, the fact that I have all this archived content uploaded adds a level of wisdom to my life. That even if I don't hit my goal in 6 months, you know, how to make fucking $10 million dropshipping in 2 weeks, all that bullshit, I'm not a failure. And you are not a failure. I've never met a single person in my life, any person online, personally, anything. I've never seen a single person be a genuine failure. So stop putting yourself in that mindset that if you don't make fucking $1 million by the end of this year, you're a failure. No, that's not how it works. That's why I'm saying, take a step back and look. That is the lie. That is the trap that these self-improvement gurus want to sell to you. This is the ideology that they're telling you so that you feel rushed and you feel forced to hop into their trap. So I promise you that the ones who slow down and the ones who learn and the ones who sharpen their skills, sharpen their knife, they are the ones who build the empires, and their empires succeed above all. Because I know that you've heard of Marcus Aurelius' empire. I know that you've heard of Seneca's empire, but you haven't heard of any other random other Roman empire, you know? I can't even name one that you wouldn't know because I don't know it. Like, that's the thing. There's the other quote which everyone has heard, which is like, I think it was Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, it was Abraham Lincoln. And he said, if I had 6 hours, if I gave you 6 hours, I'm not sure about the exact quote, whatever. If I gave you 6 hours to chop down a tree, or if I was given 6 hours to chop down a tree, I would use the first 4 to sharpen my axe. Something like that. Basically, all it's saying is don't be the first mouse who goes and tries to chop down the tree instantly, you know, and then they burn out after 10 minutes, and then they're fucked because they used a dull axe the whole time. No, step back, understand the protocol that is necessary to succeed in this action that you have been provided, this task that you've been provided, and sharpen your axe, you know, hone your skills in. Stop rushing to be first, and instead start building to be successful, to be second, to last for the future. I'll take it back from this, these quotes and all this, and I'll bring it back to real life. So, like, it's not that I'm saying that you need to quit your job tomorrow to chase your dreams. You don't need to launch a business when you haven't even read a single book about fucking businesses, because what do you know, you know? You don't need to go to war with the people you love, like your parents or your family, just because they don't understand the vision that you have. Just learn, watch, start building leverage slowly so that once you apply all of these skills that you've honed, you will succeed and you will last for the future. You can be the second mouse and still win. In fact, I think you're more likely to win as the second mouse. Because while the first mouse was sprinting towards that trap, with their chest out, their ego fucking to the moon, with their heart pounding, you were watching them. You were mapping the terrain. You were noticing which way they take, why that didn't work for them, you know, and you were preparing. You were setting yourself up so that once you take that move, it's surgical, it's precise, it is exact, it is clean, it is, you know, it's so effortless to you because the effort was all put in the building of it beforehand. There's something like Usain Bolt said. I think I'm not sure who it was, so I won't quote Usain Bolt because I don't think it was him, or might not have been him. But it was that they say that the race itself looks effortless because all the effort was put in the training behind them. You know, like you can watch someone on the final night, on like the UFC, for example, you can see them fighting, and you could be like, wow, they don't even look like they're trying. How'd they hit that kick? How the fuck did he take him down that easily? Because he did that takedown so many times in training. He practiced that kick so many times in training that now it is effortless to him. Now it is that's definitely the wrong word, sorry. It is natural to him, it's part of his brain. It's wired into him to do that and do it successfully. Because he wasn't the one flexing that kick online. He wasn't the one who rushed into the fight. He didn't take it on short notice. No, no, no. He pulled back. He was the second mouse, and he was the one who honed his skills until they worked for him. So, if you are that second mouse, you're going to get that cheese. And you're going to get that cheese with no wounds, no cuts, no trap. Simply results. And some of you right now watching this video are the first mouse. You're caught. You're currently in that trap. You chased something far too fast, and now you're paying for it. That is fine. That's okay. Because the twist is that you can become the second mouse if you learn from the failure you made being the first mouse. If you stay in that trap, well, and that's your choice, you're destined to stay in the trap. But if you use that pain and you use the loss from being in that trap, the embarrassment of being caught in that trap, all of that, you use it as fuel. You ask yourself, what did this teach me? What did I learn from this? Then you'll switch roles. You'll go from being the victim to being the strategist. And that is the pivot that changes lives. So the biggest takeaway that I'm saying here is actually really simple. It should be really simple. It's that you don't have to be first. You don't need the glory or the ego of coming first before everyone else. You don't need to prove to anyone else that you are the first one there. You simply need to observe. You need to learn, and you need to move with precision, move with accuracy. And never, ever, never let ego take you over. Never let ego make decisions for you. Because that is when you get caught in the trap. That is when you're the first mouse, the one who gets sliced up in that fucking mouse trap, and it's gross. The one who gets T-boned at the intersection. Sorry, I don't know why I keep using that example. You need to understand that the second mouse gets the cheese. And that cheese, this obviously, I'm not talking about cheese here. I'm talking about freedom. I'm talking about peace. I'm talking about prosperity, sustainability in your life. That is winning without losing yourself. So be that second mouse. Step back and take a thought. Be attentive.